Hello and welcome to the Bankers interview series. My name is Silvia Pavoni, I'm the economics editor of the Bank, and I'm joined by Erik Nielsen, who is the chief economist of UniCredit's. Erik, many entered 2013 with the idea that the worst of the economic crisis in Europe was behind us. Is it a view that you share? Yeah, very much so. I think the turning point came around the middle of last year with the OMT at the ECB, which fundamentally changed the drainage of capital out of the southern European region and gave the momentum to the market. In terms of the economy, it looks to us as if it bottomed out in the fourth quarter of last year. And the leading indicators we get here in early 2013 looks like we are indeed heading into something like flat growth in the present quarter and then heading for better times, hopefully. Okay, so good news. Now, UniCredit, obviously, it's a bank that has a presence throughout Europe, but is headquartered in Italy. What are your forecasts specifically for Italy? We think Italy will get out of recession sometime during the spring. Our forecast for the average of 2013 is very close to -1, which is close to the consensus and not controversial at all. But you have to remember that to get to -0.1, given the low base, you basically have to have positive growth, at least in the second half of the year. And we think that the positive growth already comes very marginally in the second quarter of the year. Okay, so yet another optimistic forecast. Now, what about Italian banks? I believe there is a really close link between the fate of Italy's sovereign and the fate of the banking system. And we've all heard about the third largest bank in Italy, Monte dei Paschi di Siena, having to resort to government support. So what is your outlook for the banking system, and are we going to see them resuming lending to the sector, to the real economy? Well, there are 2 or 3 things to say about the Italian banking system as far as I'm concerned. The first thing is that during the crisis, there is this linkage, as you said, between the banks and the sovereign. And because we didn't have proper capital flows inside the Eurozone, restricted by bank supervisors in the core primarily, the Italian banks had to borrow money for themselves or fund themselves off the Italian sovereign spread. Means that the monetary conditions were very tight for the private sector in Italy. That's coming down now with the spread, so that's improving. But ultimately, that has to be resolved with the banking union, and we are going that way. So that's the good news. The second thing is you have to remember that we have been through a long and serious recession in Italy as adjustments have been made. Very importantly, it's a price you have paid for longer term growth, in my opinion. But once you've gone through that period, naturally the non-performing loans would be higher. And therefore, you have to have the banking system provisioning through this period. And that's generally happening. And thirdly, the answer to the question specifically, when will the banks start to lend? They will start to lend historically about 2 to 3 quarters after the economy troughs, because lending to the corporate sector never leads the GDP numbers in Europe. After demand for companies' products pick up, inventories go down, and then they borrow money to replenish and then invest. So you have to remember what leads what. GDP leads lending, and the Italian banks will start to lend once the demand for the credit starts to increase. So we shouldn't have to wait for too long then for this to happen if the forecast about the GDP growth are correct. If history is a guide, and I don't see why it wouldn't be, then you would see lending to the corporate sector in Italy start to pick up towards the end of the year. But remember, actually the corporates have already started to borrow in the financial market, so you have a quite significant increase in securitization or issues of securities for the corporate sector. So some of that, but it's a small number compared to the role the banking system usually provides for the companies. Sure. You mentioned banking union, obviously a very hot topic at the moment. When do you think that we're going to see some significant moves towards this goal? Oh, it's happening already now. We have the common supervision being put in place. We have the ECB on the verge of hiring the supervisors, up to 2,000, I understand. So the supervision is very much being put in place now. And within a year or so, I bet you will have also the common resolution mechanism, which is surely coming. Bank deposit insurance probably takes a little longer, but it's not as important as the 2 first components. Okay, so you believe that after 1-2 year time, we're actually going to see some strong basis to start
I'm sure
the
about
banking
that.
union.
I'm sure about that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your comments.
Thank you.